So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whenever you're listening to this. This is Matthew Bailey, and as you could see in the intertitle to this video here, this is an interlude before we jump into the proceedings that is the reign of the Superman, right? So, similar to when I did something like this, but this was on the series premiere of BBB Radio, which was the rebranded name of the podcast, Bears, Beats, and Bailey. It came off the unfortunate circumstance that my mother passed away. So it's interesting now that about a couple months or so after Ricardo and I rebranded that podcast to It's a Wrap, my dad would pass away. And I don't know, boy. It's something that admittedly I was preparing for a while, but I just didn't think that it was going to happen when it did. So just to keep things thorough, I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to keep pursuing my passions. And of course, I'm going to do what I can, in terms of just making this podcast, very entertaining. And just a place that, like minded people who love films and music and whatnot can tune in and, just hear some great conversations about film and music and whatnot and have a good time, right? But again, it's just under this circumstance that I was able to do this special that you're about to listen to. It would be the second, or should I say the third to last time that I would actually see my father alive, right? So you can imagine where my mind was at, when I was recording this stuff here that you're going to hear in this playlist. In addition to that, one of my colleagues by the name of Alicia, aka Dark Alice, wasn't able to make it for that first recording, that full recording. So when you hear her vocals eventually throughout these next four videos, that was pretty much recorded after the fact, right? So that would be just, a conversation between myself and her, right? But I just spliced it through the magical powers of editing to make it look like she was part of that same recording. So just had to get that out of the way. But yeah, folks, I just had to let you all know about where my mind was at when I was doing this. And, it's just a testament to how, when you're passionate about something, sometimes these things could really help you through really dark and really taxing times in your life, you know what I mean? And I just hope, for those who are listening to or are about to listen to this here, they happen to find something that they love, they manage to find their purpose in life, right? Because believe you me, and I hope that this will help me throughout the course of my life. Yeah, it's going to help you, throughout your dark times in life, right? You need to be reminded of what your purpose is in life and, just keep going at it until the very end, because that is exactly what my father did, throughout his life. That was what he was able to do. So just leaving it like that. So with that being said, folks, you can kick back, relax, and enjoy Reign of the Superman. So yes, folks, welcome back to It's a Wrap, right? And for the first time on It's a Wrap now, we have Dark Alice, or I should say Alicia, aka Dark Alice. Well, welcome to the rebranded podcast. Hello.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes. CC Lilford, welcome back now to the rebranded podcast.
Here to fight for truth, justice, and the Trinidad way.
Yes. Yeah. I see what you did there. And of course, Tracy, welcome back, because you've been here. Last time you was here, we talked about Ando and stuff like that, right?
Oh yeah. And I'm glad to be here. The blessings of Ra be with everybody.
Yes. Of course, my fellow critic and partner in crime, Ricardo Medina, is here with me.
Hello.
Yes, and I am still Matthew Bailey. And today, I have to confess something, right? Throughout the years of me doing this podcasting thing, I realized I have not talked a lot about Superman live action films. I just talk about Batman, but it's Batman this, Batman that, Nolan and Burton and Schumacher and Reeves, it's all Batman stuff, right? I don't be talking about Superman, man. I don't be talking about Supes. I don't be talking about the Man of Steel, right? And part of it is just because I am more of a Batman fan than a Superman, right? But that's not to say that I don't appreciate the character. I mean, we all grew up on the character. Like when we were babies, literally, we sort of understood what the S was. And when we saw the figure of Superman, it's like, oh, who is this character? We probably mumbled in baby voices, right? And then as we got older, we saw Superman on TV. We saw all the movies. We went to cinemas. We got older and watched Superman movies for ourselves. I was like, oh, yes, this is Superman, right? Of course, we read the comics and we grew to love this character, right? So, yes, we're now going to start basically like a little miniseries where we're just going to cover the first time appearances of certain actors who played Superman, right? So, this is like the Superman. Well, I don't really have a title right now. Well, actually, I do have a title. It's called Reign of the Supermen, right? So, we're just basically going to focus on, yes, which is inspired by the story arc of the same name, which came right after the death of Superman, right? So yes, we will be talking about the oh gosh, well, it's debatable, right? But yeah, we're going to talk about, the first time appearances of certain actors who played Superman in film, right? Well, specifically movies. So no, we're not going to talk about Tom Welling. I'll talk about him in a bit. We're not going to talk about Dean Cain. We're not even going to talk about, oh gosh, Tyler, forgetting his surname right now, from Superman Lois.
Holton, I think.
It's Hecklin or Holchin?
No, Hecklin.
Holton, I think.
Okay,
No,
well,
Tyler Hecklin is his name.
all right. So we're sorry, folks, for butchering the name, but to be fair, I love Superman Lois. That series is excellent, in my opinion, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about 4 films. Each is the premiere of a certain actor playing the character of Superman, right? So we're gonna kick things off with the very first Superman feature film. That will be Superman and the Mole Men. I know, folks, this is not going to be like a breakdown of every single thing that happened because we literally will be here whole night, right? But yeah, it's just quick thoughts on the film itself and in particular, the performance of the lead and what that actor brought to the table as far as just bringing to life the character of Superman, right? So yeah, we're going to start off with Superman, the Mole Men. This came out in 1951. I call this Superman the B movie because, I mean, it's creatures from the center of the earth, right? It's that 50s schlocky sci-fi stuff, right? That we kind of low-key love, right? We kind of low-key love, creatures from outer space. So in this case, creatures from the center of the earth, right? Like that, right?
Right.
So I'll just share my thoughts quickly on this film here, and then I'll just jump to my other guests and they'll share their thoughts, right? So for me, this really feels like a pilot to Adventures of Superman, right? Which is funny because it kind of was supposed to be that. Well, I guess CC, you will clarify that because I know you own this on, well, it's part of what I assume. Well, okay. So quick question, CC, do you have the Superman box set, which includes Superman 1, 2, 3, 4, and Superman Returns?
So what I have is, I don't have that particular set. What I have is the 4-disc collector's edition of the 1978 Superman the movie. Like, I have just that one as like the 4-disc. I want to get the collector's edition for Superman 2 at some point, but I have the collector's edition for the first film. And the thing about that one is it comes with a ridiculous number of special features, like everything from all these different documentaries about the making of the movie. It also has some of the Fleischer Brothers Superman cartoons, but unfortunately that disc is not working as well as it used to, which is sad. But I need to just get the complete collection of those cartoons at some point anyway, because they are phenomenal. But yes, one of the special features is the 58-minute long first appearance of Superman on film, and fun fact, at least according to Wikipedia, the first ever movie featuring a DC character.
Yes,
Superman and the Mole Men, which
brilliant.
Yeah,
like just that title alone is just like joy, right? But yes, I should mention too, this is the first time. This is actually the first film, right? Before he would eventually star in Adventures of Superman. Yeah, this is the first time appearance of George Reeves. R.I.P. as Superman, right? But yeah, believe it or not, this was supposed to be broadcast as a 2-parter episode when the series actually came out. Like, it was supposed to be like midway. Yeah. Well, I think it was it was supposed to be pilot, but then they wanted to do it like midway into the show itself, but then they sort of scrapped it. So it was weird. It was weird, right? Also, the series itself started a year afterwards, and then it ended in 1958, which was a year before George Reeves passed away, right, due to a gunshot wound. We're not sure, or at least it's not known to this day, whether it was suicide or whether it was an accident, right? But yeah.
Yeah.
About this movie, right? It has all the markings of what could have been this cheesy, so bad it's good creature feature, like Robot Monster, for example, right? You know, characters show up in this random town and there's activity going on, and then these weird creatures pop up, right? So in this place, there's like this it's this oil field basically going on, and then like there's all of a sudden these two weird creatures that sort of come out, you know, starting, well, we don't really know what they're up to, right? But yeah, when it comes to the mole men themselves, right, you know, is these bald, but they have hair in the back of their heads, these weird alien-looking dudes. I swear, like, when you see the face, it looks like something out of, like, Twilight Zone. Like, there's those weird creatures that you see there.
Yeah.
And they dress in black and they walk in slow, and the show had to go on to spend like 3 minutes of just seeing them walking around, snooping around, and like, where are we going? Where are we going? And you just hearing this dun 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 bun 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 bun, because it's the 50s, right? So they had to run that kind of music, right? Yeah, it's some creature feature stuff right there, right? But it's still a Superman movie, and you kind of let those little moments slide, right? I like that there's a scene later on where Lois, right, you know, tells Clark that they had the bodies of moles. I'm like, no, they didn't have the bodies of moles. They have the hands of moles. You actually see their hands.
Yeah.
They actually have clothes or whatnot. But no, those aren't bodies of moles. Those are little people. That's what they are. Little persons or whatever. That's what they are, right?
Exactly.
And the funny thing is, it's not that laughable, you know. Like, when you see it at first, it's kind of funny. But because of the aesthetic of it, right? Because it's early 50s, it's black and white. Well, that's how I saw it. It's like, yeah, that's how horror and sci-fi films were back then anyway, right? As for George Reeves, right? I would say that he's a really good Clark Kent. I like that he acts very detective-like. You know, he's asking the workers at the oil well all these questions about all the weird stuff that's going on, right? And there's some nice bit of like dialogue-based long takes as well, right? There's one where Clark is asking this guy about radium samples, and it's kind of going on for like about a minute, but you're not really thinking about it because you're just watching the scene, right? And just the back and forth is kind of cool though. Like, it's really, really good, right? Like, by early 50s standards, it's really kind of cool, right? But you could tell, like, you know, like many shows back in the 50s, it has a sort of like a theater style to things, like just the way how the actors deliver lines and whatnot, right? There's actually a genuinely effective moment of tension where you see the two mole men climb their way into this little girl's bedroom. And because it's the 50s, the girl is just like, well, you know, I don't know where you came from, but let's play, right? But what makes it good is that she's rolling this ball at them. And then, well, it's established early on that when they touch an object, it becomes radiated, right? So yes, they touch the ball and the ball gets radiated. They send it back to the girl. And then as the girl is about to touch it, her mom opens the door. And boy, this is so 50s. Instead of like just chase these two weirdos out of her daughter's bedroom, she just yells, "Ah!" And that's it, right? And then there's a random mob that's downstairs, like, oh, where that came from? And they run afterwards, right? So yeah, best mom ever. 25 minutes in, you finally see Clark change into Superman.
It really is that far, isn't it? Like, it
is for a 58-minute movie. Like, you have to wait a while for him to become Superman, right? So I love. Sorry,
I said that's establishing Clark and establishing the whole blah 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 blah.
Exactly. I should mention too, I do like the back and forth between Clark and Lois, right? Like, they work together, but you know they kind of low-key like each other as well, right? So, speaking of Lois, I love like when Clark runs off to get change, and then she says, he always does that, gets himself into the jam and runs away. Like, that's kind of funny. That's kind of funny, right? And I should mention, like, near the climax of the film, he ducks into a hospital to change in the Superman outfit, and then he says, he's scared to death. That was kind of funny. Kind of cheesy, but whatever, right? But yeah, the outfit. He's, alright, so I'll see. He is decent as Superman, right? Especially with the sort of brave, you know, the tone of voice that he has, right? Yeah. And he has a way of like just putting his his arms akimbo and just like always stand like da, you know what I mean? He always kind of stands like that. Like even when he's not doing anything, he just always stands like that. I'm like, all right, bro, you know, you don't have to always have that pose all the time, you know, but whatever, right? But there's something about the costume itself, like this how the torso looks. It looks rather bulky. Like almost like if there's like a bulletproof vest tucked in. But
This is physique for the guys. This is physique for the guys at the time, you know, with barrel chest. You know,
yeah.
Those color when they have like basically the male equivalent of like a corset. They wear something like that basically. I remember
like some kind of pattern or something.
Yeah,
You see, the thing for me, the thing for me is that like I used to wear, like when I came out of spinal surgery, there was this kind of a brace that I used to have to wear for a while under my clothes. And when I look at that, that is the kind of, that's not it, but that is the kind of look and feel that you get from that costume. Like if he's wearing some kind of brace or, as you guys say,
he's a bit stiff, yeah. Yeah, he's a bit stiff.
It's basically like the equivalent of a male corset. And I remember from the guy made this joke, you know, the fit, not fit looking guy. That's basically what's happening. You squeeze yourself into out with just a barely fit there. But that's what that barrel chest look was. That was the look, you know, until Arnold was.
So what's weird though is that there's a moment where after one of the moment got shot and was saved by Superman because he fell off a dam. The other one runs off and then we just get this long extended chase scene, which ends with the woman like in a shed, a burning shed. Yeah, and then he runs out. I'm like, where's Superman in all of this though? Like you think, what Superman say? Oh, I'm gonna get this one to the hospital, but you think like you would drop him off and then come back and save the other one. Like, oh gosh, faster than a speeding bullet, bro. That's what you tell me in those, you know, the radio show itself. I'm gonna talk about the radio show as a wrap up here, right? But yeah, like where was Superman at this point, bro? It's like almost close to 10 minutes with this whole chase scene, right? Whatever. But yeah, so I want to reveal how the rest of the film plays out, but it's pretty silly, even though it really is trying to take itself seriously, right? But the best way I could describe this show, right, as a wrap up here, right, is that if you've never listened to the radio show, right, which I actually put you guys on, and I won't lie, is a vibe to listen. Like, let me just say, if you want something to just listen to before you crash out, like, listen to that, especially with the sort of old school dialogue and, you know, it's Superman. Like, it sounds really cool though, when you think about it. It's just cheesy fun, right? But it's a good, like, nighttime relaxant. That's the best way I could sum it up, right? So if you never listened to the radio show or you never watch the series, like I never watched the Adventures of Superman series, but I'd like to. I'd watch a few episodes. Like I wouldn't watch it religiously or whatever. I would say this is the film to watch, right? It's one of those shows that if you could appreciate it for its old school charm, then you will enjoy it. And, you know, I have a soft spot for, these kind of like, very retro 50s, you know, sci-fi films as well too, right? That just entertains, but it just has a very light, very calm tone to it and whatnot. And with some cheesy moments I could laugh at, but, you know, I could be like, you know, it's the 50s, whatever. It look cool, right? But if it's not for you, it's not for you. That's the best way I could sum it up. If you like that sort of old school, if you like old school movies, like especially with sci-fi or horror, whatever it is, you'll enjoy Superman the Moment. But if this is not for you, I know there's some people who just can't watch any black and white film from the 50s. I know it's weird, but I know some people who will like that. Yeah, that this is not for you, right? And I'll close this, right? That line though, that Superman delivers, I think is one of the best way he says, now I'm going to give you one last chance to stop acting like Nazi stormtroopers. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's a bar. That's a bar right there, right? So for me, I'm going to give this
line and another one that he has later on that I just...
Or did you write it down, Tracy? Or you didn't?
I have it here as I have it here as these little people have as much a right to be here as everyone else.
Oh yes, I remember that.
The village was coming after them and they were in the hospital. And I love that because in this current society where all the things are singing, the fact that that line still has resonance. Back in the 50s with mole men, people who are other, and yet today it could still have resonance. Brilliant. That and the Nazi stormtroopers on itself.
Yeah, so for me, rating wise, I'm gonna give this a very light 3 out of 5, man. It That's right. I wouldn't see myself watching it again, but if I were to acquire the 78 Superman on Blu-ray, I know that's one of the special features. I think it's either for, well, I'm not sure if it's for the theatrical or the extended or the TV special version. I'm not sure. I'll have to do some Googling and find out for myself, right? But I actually want that film on Blu-ray, just kind of sell myself out there one time. And I would be happy if, I were able to watch, Superman the Moment on Blu-rays and, just see that I own it, right? So to speak.
I am trying to imagine what that movie would look like on Blu-ray, though. Like the whole HD quality, because even in DVD quality, I was like, they have the bodies of mole men. I'm like, if moles wore sweaters, maybe.
Yeah, sure. I think it probably will look exactly how it does on the DVD. I think it'll look the same way on Blu-ray. I don't think they're gonna make any effort to encode it even more. I don't know, right? But yeah, Ricardo, did you see Superman the Moment, or is no? Okay, well, as I wrap up here, what do you think about that show? You have the floor now.
Yeah, no, okay. So I like to think I'm the closest to the actual Superman aficionado here, in terms of its history, the history of the character. Mole Man is very golden age, right? It plays with a good mix of the silly sci-fi of the times, but also have a message and so on and so forth. I mean, Superman destroyed the KKK, right? So,
yes.
It's all of that stuff. So this is a good thing. I think I really like George Reeves. Anybody ever watch the Matt Damon? No, sorry, the Ben Affleck movie with him? With that?
Is that any good?
Pretty good actually. I really like it.
What's the name of that film, please?
Hollywood right now.
Oh, Hollywoodland.
Hollywoodland. Yeah.
Okay. I know about the film, yes, but I never saw it. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, but so this plays with a lot of the career. Like rewatching it is like, oh yeah, right. And knowing George Reeves' career, his unfortunate end, and how he treated the material as an actor. He's one of those great actors who is one of those guys who just was so professional and just treated the material with a lot of respect. And he made it work for what it was. But because later with the TV show he started actually directing material and whatnot himself. This is one of those things that started off as I say, Matthew. Yeah, it's a kind of like the equivalent of an extended pilot of sorts. That's what it is. And yes, it is very, very fun and silly, but it works. And it's just him telling a message. It's for the kids, and they make it work. And yeah, he was one of those guys. He always used to try to stay in character as much as he can. Very, very kayfabe. How a lot of actors were. Even before. Yeah, even before wrestlers were like that, in the early days of wrestling, he was very kayfabe. He's like, I don't want to see them like this, but, you play it like that. And yeah, really good actor, really professional when his career and his life. So it's that. I think it's Manny Molban. I have a lot of fun with it, for what it is. I'd love to see somebody do a remake with a more serious version of it, quote unquote, just a modernized, animated something or something like that. Somebody could do that, or make it work in its own conceit. And not make it too, but, have it work and modernize it properly, right? A lot of people like to just do something and just do it and it's just come across as cargo culty, Superman Returns. So it's that, right? Yeah, that's how I feel about it. I like it, it's a fun one. Fun enough what you say. And yeah, as I say, the radio program is really good stuff as well. Yes, with that.
Yeah. Alright, so Alicia, aka Dark Alice. Your thoughts on Superman and the Moment.
Well, first of all, before I talk about the movie itself, I have to kind of just sneak in here how I felt about George Reeves as Superman before I get into it. First of all, I didn't know this was the first live action DC film until you brought it up for the podcast. I did some research on it. The thing about it is, George Reeves to me was always this kind of a figure that was always so mysterious. And I always felt very, very strange about looking at any of these Superman episodes or clips with him because there was so much mystery about the way that he died, and because Superman for me is was such a big part of my childhood and so on. I always felt that maybe I shouldn't be watching this because this guy died very weird, and worse yet, they said that maybe it might have been suicide. So I'm like, that it just always made me feel like kind of dirty in a kind of a way to approach the George Reeves Superman. So this was my first experience watching this Superman and the Mole Man movie, and I have to say that surprisingly, I enjoyed it, even though the Mole Man looked really really weird. But is that the aesthetics of it is the normal cheesy sci-fi Twilight Zone kind of stuff that was very popular at the time. So the whole, especially the whole moment where the way that the town turns against the mole man and just wants to basically kill these creatures. Even though we are the ones that encroached on their habitat because it was a drill. So it kind of reminds me of kind of like what's going on right now in the world, with all the stuff politically. But they said that the inspiration, I was reading up on it, and they said that the inspiration behind that was to do with what was going on in the United States, funny enough, at the time, with the closing of World War II and the Red Scare. You remember the McCarthyism era?
Marginally familiar with that.
Right, right. So that was exactly smack dab in the middle of that Red Scare McCarthyism thing. So that line, that iconic line that you spoke about, where he says, they're acting like Nazi stormtroopers and so on, that was done on purpose. The line was done on purpose, and the entire aesthetics of the film was like a, how you said, display of what was going on at the time, the whole atmosphere of communism and so on. It was a representation of it. In terms of George Reeves' screen presence, he was very good because he was very authoritative and very assertive and confident. His Clark Kent was actually surprisingly very confident in himself. He wasn't like the fumbling, bumbling Clark Kent speaking up in his nose kind of thing. His voice was exactly the same. He made no effort to disguise his voice, you know. And he stood up very, very straight, his posture, unlike the other versions of Clark Kent where they tried to hunch over to make themselves not look as tall. He didn't do that. And I really enjoy the kind of investigative nature, But then again, he's a reporter; he's supposed to be like that. The only thing I was kind of disappointed at is that the Superman persona didn't get as much screen time. And I don't know if it was written that way on purpose because, again, they were getting ready to film the episodes, the actual series after the film. This was like our first introduction representative of a pilot film for the series. So maybe that's why they didn't show as much of the Superman persona. But yeah, I just never felt too good about watching the Superman films with George Reeves because I always thought that the suicide thing, it just, I don't know. And then they had this thing where they said he was having an affair with mob boss wife, and I don't know. It just made me feel uncomfortable, So that's why I never really say, "Wow, George Reeves as Superman." I never really got excited about it. But for me, the film, just in passing and knowing that it was an iconic film, I could give it a score of 2.5 out of 5.
Okay, so CC, seeing that you own this on DVD, wow, lucky you, eh? Wow, yeah. Instead of us having to go to Internet Archive, right? Internet Archive, I had to go to find this, you had to find this show. But yeah, your thoughts on Superman and the Mole Man?
I think it's one of those things where I'm coming at it like Ricardo was saying. Superman and the Mole Man is very Golden Age Superman. Like, it's the kind of storyline that comes straight out of the Superman comics that would, like, of the Golden Age, would have been right at home at the radio show, all that kind of thing. I think the other thing that's going on here is that it is, as you kind of flagged earlier, Matthew, it's in conversation with the kind of B movie cinema that is going on at the same time. But I will also say not cinema, because when you compare it to some of the like 50s movies at the time, like it kind of fits in with some of the drive-in stuff Definitely, like some of the drive-in fare that Roger Corman was putting out. But like when it comes to like more cinematic B movies and like sci-fi and horror films at the time, like it's definitely not quite on that level of quality. It's more in line with Roger Corman because this is meant for TV. Like I think from my own research, they had intended this as a pilot, and so they kind of ended up making it as kind of like a proof of concept, essentially like a glorified proof of concept, and then they would later re-edit it for television, and we'd get it that way. But what we end up with is this bizarre project that's kind of part movie, part TV episode, and it doesn't really need to like set up very much. We get the whole kind of opening thing we get the thing in the opening credits where it's essentially like the last survivor of the planet Krypton comes to Earth and is raised as Superman, and it kind of like gives you the kind of rundown. Krypton, planet boom. Superman lives on Earth faster than a speeding bullet. Alter ego is Clark Kent. Go. I think the thing, I mean, and first of all, like Ricardo already pointed out, I think one of the other reasons that it's firmly in conversation with the time period is that not only is this like, very much within the sci-fi oeuvre of the time, but it's very moral. There's a very clear message, a very clear moral that this film is presenting us with. The whole like bigotry is bad, and all intelligent creatures have a right to life, essentially. Very much in conversation with things like Superman and what was it? Superman against the Clan of the Fiery Cross. That some listeners, this would later be readapted into the recent, quite excellent comic Superman Smashes the Klan, which is really good. So I really love it as kind of this weird hybrid project that's like part B movie, part Superman, part the kind of 50s television. Apparently the whole thing was shot in in 12 days. And it is such a fascinating little curio. It's one of those movies that's like, I don't want to say so bad it's good, because everyone involved is trying so hard and they're doing such a good job. And like, I genuinely really like Ricardo was saying, George Reeves is a great performer. George Reeves is a great actor, and I appreciate the kind of taking the role of Superman very seriously, like being able to come across as Clark Kent, but then also the like Superman of it all, doing that quite well, and the like kind of giving Superman a different performance and style of talking and all this kind of thing, and how he communicates the character in that way. Like that stuff is like it's all fantastic. Definitely the being shot in 12 days of it all kind of adds a certain, it's not a B movie quality as much as it is kind of like a vaguely cheap quality. Like you could definitely, like there's moments where you're like, we couldn't afford to come up with anything too ambitious to stretch this out to the length of a feature film. We had to kind of keep this a little on the modest side. The Mole Men couldn't look like, because there was like Universal had a movie about Mole Men that came out in the 50s, but those Mole Men are clearly made by the same studio that had Creature from the Black Lagoon money, whereas these Mole Men are little people wearing sweaters and claw gloves on their hands. I think the thing that I settle on when all is said and done, kind of weighing all the different aspects of the movie and all the different directions it's coming from, is that this is still a very entertaining movie. It's earnest in all the right ways and in all the right places, and because of that, it's hard to come down on it too hard in any particular ways. And like, there's all the little Supermanisms about it that make it genuinely enjoyable. There's some of the 50s B movie of it all. Like I always love in 50s B movies the disconnect between the way people talk about the creatures and the way the creatures look. I think one of the best examples of this, there's this great 50s B movie called The Giant Claw, where the actors actually didn't know what the monster looked like. So they spend the whole movie talking about like, oh man, it's terrifying. It's a giant like all this. And the monster that the studio finally was able to come up with was a giant puppet, a very goofy looking puppet that they got from Mexico. And the actors, when they went to the premiere of the movie, were kind of so embarrassed because the audience kept bursting out laughing whenever the giant monster was on screen, that they eventually kind of slunk off and never spoke about the movie again. And that kind of disconnect between like the way people talk about the monster versus the monster itself is always something that I find quite entertaining in a lot of B movies from this time period. And then the weird 50s gender stuff, like Lois Lane screams, Clark Kent runs into the room, grabs her quite roughly by the shoulders, and is like, Lois, what happened? Which is, I'm watching this with my wife, and we both have a good laugh at that. And I'm like, I think if I ever ran into a room and grabbed you because I heard you scream, she's like, oh, I would punch you. It's like on a second thought. So yeah, very entertaining watch. Definitely like a good gateway to kind of Golden Age comics, the radio shows, things like that. And definitely, I really say after watching it, I want to watch the Reeves show. I think I actually got genuinely curious about the Reeves show after watching the movie. So as a pilot, it does its job effectively in that way. Yeah.
All right. Tracy, your thoughts on Superman and the Mole Men?
I'll start off by being with my lukewarm take. I will watch this more than I will watch Superman fighting Nuclear Man in Superman 4. That's not happening.
Yeah, for real. Yeah.
That's not happening. So if it comes down to a choice between the Mole Man or Superman versus Nuclear Man, this wins. Here's my thing. I remember, getting first time I listened to the radio shows. And then, as I was telling you, Sir Billy, I had lost it. I had it somewhere and I lost it. And then you were gracious enough to, bring it back for us. And listening to the radio shows and then diving back into the first live action Superman. I don't know how it would have felt for the people who are, glued to their radios all this time, listening to what they imagine Superman and Lois and everybody else would sound like. And then seeing this for the first time, that must have been the most epic thing in their mind. So, in terms of, my feeling for Superman and the Mole Men, I would legitimately go back to this because, again, it gives me that kind of warm feeling inside. It gives me that kind of giggly feeling. My thing is that I feel like in terms of wardrobe and stuff, I do agree, the Superman costume is a heights. But, in terms of, Clark hiding it well underneath his Clark costume with that big old jacket and those glasses and everything, it kind of sells it quite nicely. So I have warm memories of warm feelings for this. I feel like this is one of those things that might end up being part of my comfort food kind of vibe, you know what I mean? So I will probably come back to this. I will give it Sabili, give it a 3.5 out of 5. Superman and the Mole Men as a first intro to a live action Superman is actually I like it. It has a nice kind of warm feeling to it. Now I have a vague memory, and I'm trying to figure out if it's from AVM or if it was from people back in the day of seeing pieces and glimpses of the Superman, Adventures of Superman series itself. But I can't confirm whether that is just, AVM had a thing, or maybe it was a news report or whatever it is like that. But I remember being very young and seeing something along those lines. But in terms of this moment's pitch, this is actually kind of fun. So I like it. And well done, George Reeves.
Yeah, and RIP, of course. RIP to the great George Reeves.
Indeed.
Yeah.